Some criminal acts are crimes of opportunity requiring little knowledge or planning to execute. The crimes in the video today, they fall into the opposite category. Pulling off these crimes required extensive planning and in some cases special skills, equipment, subterfuge, and access. Number 10. Stealing a shark from an aquarium. There aren't many shark nappings on the books, but July 2018's theft of a 16-inch horn shark from the San Antonio Aquarium would likely go down as the most thoroughly researched. 2 men and a woman were caught on camera scooping out the aquarium's touch tank for more than an hour before using their own net to capture the shark, whose name is Miss Helen. They then wrapped the shark in a wet towel and plopped her into a baby carriage. 2 of the suspects transferred her into a bucket of water in a nearby room before making their escape. Investigating authorities got a break in the case when an aquarium employee recognized one of the men in the surveillance video. About a month prior, Anthony Shannon had posed as a representative for the aquarium's salt supplier. Saying that he had to run some tests because of a bad batch of salt that the company had discovered, Shannon received a full behind-the-scenes tour of all of the aquarium's exhibit areas. On visiting the house of one of the suspects, police found Miss Helen along with other marine creatures in an elaborate tank structure. The chief of the local police department noted that the suspect very much knew what he was doing in terms of providing appropriate care for the shark. Shannon, who has been charged with theft, asserts that he is an activist, not a criminal, and says he was on a mission to protect the health of the shark by liberating her from unhealthy tank conditions. Number 9. The multinational stolen shoe matchup. Swedish police were initially baffled by a string of designer shoe thefts. While the shoes had strong resale value and would be easy to transport, the thieves were swiping only the display shoes, which were all lefts. After repeated thefts in the Swedish city of Malmö, including one incident where a pair of thieves grabbed 7 left shoes from a single store, shoekeepers and police developed a theory about what was going on. Malmö and its 125 shoe shops is just across the water from Copenhagen, Denmark, which has hundreds of shoe stores of its own. While Swedish shoe stores display left shoes, the right shoes are used for displays in Denmark, so thieves were likely matching up shoes from Sweden with the right shoes from Denmark and approached Malmö's police superintendent, called Tried and Tested. Scandinavia isn't the only place where shoe thieves have employed multi-stage thefts to complete a pair of shoes. A Foot Locker manager in Brooklyn has observed a similar pattern. While his Foot Locker displays are left sneakers, Jimmy Jazz, another sneaker retailer nearby, uses the right shoes in its displays. Explains the manager, they go here and they steal a left shoe. Let's say it's a size 9.5. They go to Jimmy Jazz and steal the right. Number 8. Stealing dozens of paintings while forging their replacements. Xiao Yang, an art librarian, was responsible for a gallery in the Guangzhou Academy of Fine Arts. He worked out a pretty clever art theft strategy there. During the 2 years he oversaw the collection, Zhao, who had keys that allowed him complete access to all the galleries outside of business hours, swiped more than 140 paintings from Chinese masters. He kept some of the paintings whose total value was estimated at more than $16 million and sold the others at auction, netting more than $5 million. To avoid detection, Xiao produced his own replacements for the stolen works, just swapping the fakes with the originals in the gallery after hours. Xiao's forged works were apparently credible, as the crimes only came to light when a former student of the Guangzhou Academy of Fine Arts saw the school's seal on artwork that was for sale in Hong Kong. Zhao pled guilty to a corruption charge and apologized for his actions, but noted that art theft and forgery were common at the library. He even noted that his forgeries were stolen and replaced with less convincing fakes, saying, "I realized someone had replaced my paintings with their own because I could clearly discern that their works were terribly bad." Number 7. Framing the victim. When his ex-girlfriend accused him of rape and refused to back down from their claims, Jerry Remraten, a man obsessed with crime dramas on TV and who claimed to be a private investigator, launched an elaborate scheme to punish her. Remraten famed his ex, Simona Sumasar, for a series of robberies that never took place, coaching fake witnesses to identify her as their assailant and to provide details, like a car's license plate number, to underscore her guilt. Sumasar insisted she was innocent, but was arrested and held for $1 million in bail, which she could not afford, for 7 months, during which time she was separated from her daughter and lost her restaurant and home. It wasn't until an informer came forward days before Sumasar was to stand trial that Remraten's plot unraveled. When police checked the phone records, they discovered Ramratin had been in contact with all of the purported witnesses. They eventually confessed to the police. Samosa was released and Ramratin was convicted on more than 10 charges. The Queen's District Attorney underscored the diabolical nature of Ramratin's methodical frame-up of Samosa, saying that despite the massive volume of cases the office handles, no one has ever seen anything like this before. Few people have the capacity to pull off a master plot of this magnitude to exact revenge. Number 6. Creating a counterfeit Moscow Philharmonic. In 2000, thousands of classical music fans in Hong Kong turned out for several near-sellout concerts in August, shelling out up to $31 for each ticket. The performances received rave reviews from audiences, and a local music critic praised them particularly. There was just one problem. The Moscow Philharmonic was actually touring in Europe on the same dates that it was purported to be performing in Hong Kong. Eventually it emerged that while a few freelancers from the actual Moscow Philharmonic had performed in Hong Kong, they did so as part of a makeshift group of musicians rather than under the auspices of the Philharmonic. There was finger-pointing on both sides, with one Moscow newspaper calling Hong Kong a city of fakes, and the real orchestra's guest conductor saying, "It's a huge scandal in Moscow, very upsetting." Meanwhile, the concert organizers and the government of Hong Kong, which had helped promote the concert, continued to insist that the concerts were not a hoax, since some members of the Moscow Philharmonic Orchestra had actually performed. Number 5. Masks, research, and copying a Hollywood heist movie. A trio of thieves were evidently impressed by the Ben Affleck movie The Town, using several techniques employed by the movie's crew of thieves to rob a New York check-cashing business of $200,000. And but for one small mistake, they might have gotten away with it. In the movie, the thieves dress as nuns, then commit armed robbery. The real-life thieves, Akeem Monsalvage, Edward Byam, and Derek Dunkley, hired a high-end special effects company to make them latex masks to hide their identity. These masks, the contributions of a makeup artist who believed the three were being disguised for a music video, as well as accompanying costumes, made the three, who are African-American, appear to be white NYPD officers. As in the movie, the three reportedly doused the crime scene with bleach to obscure any DNA evidence and tried to intimidate an employee by providing details of her personal life. The latter proved to be the thieves' undoing, though. They showed the check-cashing store clerk a series of photos, including a picture of her house, but on the way out with their newfound riches, they dropped the photo, which the police were able to trace to a nearby Walgreens. The group's leader had paid for the photos using his real name. Meanwhile, Monsalvage, Byam, and Dunkley were not nearly as disciplined after the crime as they had been in planning it. Photos of them flashing cash, expensive goodies, and even one of them wearing a t-shirt depicting The Town helped convince a jury to convict the trio, who were sentenced to more than 30 years in prison. Number 4. Rigging the lottery. IT manager Eddie Tipton seemed like any other employee of the Multi-State Lottery Association during the 12 years that he worked there. He was responsible for writing code for several US lottery games, including Mega Millions, Hot Lotto, and Powerball. His $540,000 five-bedroom house near Des Moines, Iowa did seem a little big for a single guy making less than $100,000 a year, but he explained it away by saying that he channeled all of his savings into setting up the house for the family that he hoped to have someday. However, when Tipton was caught on camera purchasing a $16.5 million winning lottery ticket, which he tried to claim via an attorney, investigators dug into Tipton's life and realized that he had an awful lot of lucky family members and friends who'd also won the lottery. As part of a plea deal, Tipton revealed how his scheme had worked. He had inserted code on the random number generator the lottery used to select the winning numbers. On a couple of predetermined dates, assuming they fell on a Saturday or a Wednesday, Tipton restricted the input used by the random number generator, reducing the pool of winnings from more than 10 million to a few hundred combinations, which he would provide to a family member or a friend to play. Tipton told investigators his initial motivation was to crack the system, saying it was never my intent to start a full-out ticket scam, but that it occurred to me like, wow, I could do this. I could be making a living doing this. Number 3. Landscaping their way to $70 million. One of the world's largest bank robberies was the theft of $70 million in currency from the Fortaleza branch of Brazil's central bank. The team of thieves prepared methodically for their big heist. They began by renting a small house a block away from the bank, ostensibly to house their gardening business. They painted the building, slapped a logo on a van, advertised their gardening services, and even passed out promotional swag around the neighborhood. Once their base was established, the team spent the next 3 months building an 80-meter tunnel, complete with electricity and basic air conditioning, into the vault. They had to remove large amounts of dirt every day, but no one thought it was odd for a landscaping company to be hauling around truckloads of soil. When the thieves reached the vault, they took the equivalent of $70 million. The thieves specifically only took old bills from the vault that had already been in circulation, so there was no record of the serial numbers. The group's suspected ringleader was eventually found dead, and more than a dozen suspects were arrested for their involvement in the theft. However, the majority of the money taken in the heist, it remains missing. Number 2. Choppering in for the cash. If you're going to rob a cash depot, you better come prepared. One gang of thieves definitely did when they launched a daring raid on the G4S cash depot in the Vastberger area of Stockholm, Sweden, which provides cash for the many ATMs in Stockholm. The thieves selected September the 23rd for their attack, presumably because the depot would be well stocked with cash in anticipation for September the 25th, the day of the month when most Swedes receive their monthly salaries. Prior to their pre-dawn attack on the complex, the thieves stole a helicopter. A little after 5 a.m., masked men dropped from the helicopter onto the depot roof, breaking a window to enter the complex and using explosives to advance to the area where the cash was stored. As the chopper hovered over the buildings, the thieves hoisted several $1 million worth of cash into it. The thieves anticipated the police response and planned accordingly. They blocked the roads around the cash depot with metal rods, slowing the ability of police vehicles to reach the scene. They also deployed what appeared to be bombs, later determined to be fake, around the police helipad, preventing an aerial pursuit. Some suspects were eventually found and convicted, but some participants and the stolen cash remains on the loose. Number 1. Looting the Diamond District. Antwerp, Belgium is the world's foremost diamond trade center. More than 80% of the world's rough diamonds and 50% of the world's cut diamonds are traded in Antwerp, which saw $46 billion in goods traded in 2017. With so much valuable merchandise concentrated in about 1 square mile, Antwerp's diamond district presents an attractive, though heavily secured, target for thieves. In 2003, the Antwerp Diamond Center became the scene of the largest jewel theft in history, as a team of thieves accessed more than 100 of its vaults and made off with an estimated $100 million in diamonds. The planning behind the scheme was detailed by Leonardo Notarbartolo, one of its architects, in an interview with Wired magazine. Almost 3 years prior, Notarbartolo, who had been involved in thefts for most of his adult life, rented a small office in the Antwerp Diamond Center, playing the role of a low-level Italian gem importer. According to Notarbartolo, a jewelry dealer through whom had previously traded stolen goods with, asked him to investigate the possibility of robbing the Antwerp Diamond Center. Notarbartolo was game, conducting extensive reconnaissance on the facility, its security measures, and its fortified vault. The team worked methodically to develop a plan to penetrate the building a replica vault for practice and developing custom replicas for the building's keys. The day before the robbery, Notarbartolo sprayed hairspray over the vault's motion detector and taped over its light detector. When the thieves opened the magnetic vault doors, they cut the bolts holding the magnets and taped them in place, ensuring that the final alarm didn't sound. The team then drilled into the individual boxes within the vault, making off with an estimated $100 million in diamonds and jewelry, though Notarbartolo maintains that the take was far less. Notarbartolo was eventually caught because the gang discarded some trash, including a half-eaten sandwich that police were able to trace to him. While 3 additional members of the gang were eventually convicted and given jail sentences, most of the diamonds were never found. Notarbartolo was found carrying more than 2 pounds of rough diamonds following his 2009 release from prison, though because rough stones are virtually untraceable, police were unable to disprove Notarbartolo's story that he had purchased cheap industrial diamonds. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up below and don't forget to subscribe. Brand new videos just like this every day of the week. Also, if you're looking for something else to watch right now, why not check out my other channel, BIOGRAPHICS, biographies of notable people from history as well as the present day. Find a link to that on the screen now. And as always, thank you for watching.